Hi, it's Julia. Welcome back to the channel. So today I've got a little story time for you. I was born in a haunted house, so if you want to hear a little bit more about that, then keep listening. And if that kind of stuff freaks you out, then maybe check something else out. So stay tuned. When I was younger, I was born in a house that was haunted, and my mom shares stories of this, and there were 3 things that happened kind of on a regular basis in that home. So I'm just going to explain some of the supernatural things that happened in that house, and then I'll kind of explain what I think was the reason why we got attacked that way. This was a house that my parents didn't own. I think they rented it, and it was in downtown Chicago in one of those old brick buildings. I was really young. I think I was like 3 years old when I was there, and I think we left when I was 4. We didn't stay very long. But when my mom was alone in the house with us kids during the day, she would get a person that would ring the doorbell at the front of the house. And as soon as she would answer the door, like touch the doorknob, the back door would ring. And then as soon as she would go to the back door and touch the handle, the front door would ring. And it would go back and forth and do this until finally she just realized that someone was messing with her. But she didn't really believe in the supernatural, so I think in the beginning, she was just thinking it was like kids doing ding dong ditch or whatever. This old house had wood floors, and there was a long hallway that my parents' bedroom was at the end of this hallway. And during the night, my mom would hear these footsteps kind of walking across that hallway. And she said it actually had weight to it, like it was a man's shoe, like a man's dress shoe that would walk slowly across the room, and she could hear that the sound was getting closer to her door. So it was a very 3-dimensional sound. It wasn't a very flat sound. She could tell that it was at the end of the hall, and then it would be walking towards the bedroom, and it would stop at the bedroom door, and then it would be quiet, and then it would walk back, and it would just walk back and forth, and it got in the way of her sleep. And she would try and wake my dad up and say, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that?" And he'd always deny hearing it. Well, it got to the point where it was so bad that she put carpet down on that hallway. And even though she put the carpet down, she would still hear that walk across the hallway. And so that was another thing that freaked her out and made her uncomfortable in her own home. This actually has to do with me. I was in a crib. I think my brother and I were both in cribs in the same room. And we had like a shelf of toys. And my mom sometimes would go into that room and, you know, she'd be picking us up or playing with us or doing something. And the stuffed animals on that shelf would literally jump up and across the room and just land on the other side of the room. And she would be freaked out, but then tell herself, okay, it just fell, even though we all know that gravity makes it fall this way. It doesn't make it jump in the air and fall all the way across the room. So she would pick it up and put it back on the shelf, and the same thing would happen. And then the same thing would happen. Eventually, she just left the toys on the floor because she was so aggravated. Then the final straw that got them to move was one time my mom was in the basement doing laundry. And she could hear my dad kind of walking around upstairs. So she kind of like called out to him and asked him something. And then she could hear that he was walking down the stairs and that he was walking right behind her. And so she was talking to him and he wasn't answering her. And then she said she felt a hand go on her shoulder, the 4 fingers, and she could feel the sensation of the weight of a hand. And she turns around and nobody's there. And that was the last straw for her. She just said, I have to get out of here. So they end up moving out of this place, and years go by. And my mom mentions this story to my dad, like, hey, do you remember when we lived in that house and that I could have swore I heard these footsteps, but you said you never heard them? And my dad said, oh yeah, I heard them. And she's like, what do you mean you heard them? You told me all the time that you didn't hear them. And he said, well, I didn't want to freak you out, which is kind of crazy because it made her feel crazy. In my opinion, what I think, this demon that was living in this building, I don't know where it came from. I do believe it was a curse. I don't know if that curse followed our family. I believe the point of that demon was to separate my parents and to create division in their relationship. And there was a division. I feel like it created a division. It made my mom feel very alone, that she had to fight this battle on her own, that she was crazy. She didn't feel that my father was with her on that. And even what could have been an experience like a trauma bond where they could come up with a plan and help each other out and, you know, talk each other through stuff. It ended up being a thing that separated them and made my mom feel isolated and alone in that. And so I do believe that there was an agenda against my parents from the very beginning. I do believe that that spirit was out to divide them. Anyway, that is my story of the house that I was born in, a generational curse. I just believe this is a generational curse of division that is trying to keep the family from not staying together. So here's what I have for all of you out there. If any of you have experienced a situation like this, I encourage you to come together as a family, pray together for your home, bless your home together, and come up with a plan together. Do not let the enemy divide you, because this world is hard enough, and we're already having to deal with battles out there that are beyond our scope of handling. We don't need to be fighting our own family members in our own home. The home should be a place where it's a safe space for us to come together as a team and help each other out. And so that's my 2 cents. That's what I learned from that experience, that even if you're going through a bad experience, it can bring you together if you let it. That is the crazy story of the house that I was born in. And I hope that that entertained you, and I hope you also learned a little something, and I hope that you have a great rest of your week. Take care. Bye-bye.